Alrighty guys, welcome back to Star Wars Review. Today I'm reviewing The Mandalorian Season 3, Chapter 23, The Spies, which was written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and directed by Rick Famuyiwa, and was released on April 12th, 2023, which I really enjoyed the episode. I am a little late to getting this one out. Definitely not because I wrote half the review and then accidentally deleted it. I definitely didn't do that, but anyways, the episode, I thought it was the best of the season so far, because, I thought it was making some good progress with the story and whatnot, but had all the stuff I love about an episode of The Mandalorian. My only real problem is that I think it's a little too late maybe for this season. I wish this type of episode happened sooner in the season than the second to last, and even though I've been enjoying the season so far, it just hadn't had the highs of the first two seasons until this episode. So hopefully next episode we'll be able to bring more of those highs. But let's just dive into the episode. It starts off on Coruscant, where we see Elia Kane walking in the under area of Coruscant, and she goes down an alleyway where she meets a probe droid, which is used to call up Moff Gideon, which is the first time we've seen him in this season. But this moment kind of confirms a lot of stuff. First, Kane is still working with Gideon, and obviously that Gideon escaped, but that was already pretty much confirmed in chapter 21. But another moment, Kane tells him about the pirates, which it also seems like Gideon, or the pirates were working for Gideon, but Kane tells him that, the pirates were attacked and defeated by Bo-Katan, along with Din Djarin and his covert, which Gideon tells her to kind of continue on with her mission and hold deal with the Mandalorians, which they hang up, and then we see Gideon in some underground cave base place where he unlocks through a bunch of laser door thingies that was open when he walks by, and there's a bunch of special looking stormtroopers kind of guarding the area, which I'll get back into those more later in the episode. But he also walks past by some cloning tube thingies like we saw in the season 2 episode, chapter 12. But he then goes into a meeting area where he talks to a bunch of other Imperial remnants, officer leaders and whatnot, which the group is called the Shadow Council, which a Imperial remnant group called the Shadow Council appeared in the Aftermath novels. But this council includes, obviously, Gideon, but also Captain Pelion, who in Legends was Thrawn's second in command, but has appeared in canon and the novel Thrawn Treason, and briefly as a voice in Star Wars Rebels. But we also see Brendel Hux, who's the father of the First Order General, Armitage Hux, who appeared in the sequel trilogy films, played by Domhnall Gleeson, which Brendel is played by Domhnall's brother, Brian Gleeson. But the name of the character is based around their father, actor Brendan Gleeson, so that's cool there. But back to the scene. They talk about the New Republic and planning the resurgence of the Empire, which Pelion talks about Thrawn's imminent return, which Gideon kind of calls him out on that because, the rest of them have no clue about Thrawn and what he's up to, and Pelion just keeps talking about his return and whatnot. And Gideon mentions that it's maybe time to look at new leadership. I guess maybe Thrawn and Pelion are kind of the leaders of the council, I guess. I don't know. Which in this moment we see Hux mention a thing called Project Necromancer, which Pelion talked about it beforehand, and how his plans with Thrawn will give Hux more time there, which I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's related to Starkiller Base. Maybe it's related to Snoke. It's probably one of those. Which Gideon agrees with Hux on how it's a start to new leadership. But Hux then mentions Pershing and the cloning research and whatnot, which makes me think it might, Project Necromancer might be Snoke related. I don't know. But Gideon says Pershing was captured by the New Republic, which Hux says that, he heard Gideon was holding Pershing on Navarro and doing his own experiments, which Gideon's like, you're the ones obsessed with cloning and whatnot, and goes on about Hux and Pelion are the ones taking all the resources while the others look over their sectors, scraping by, which Hux pulls out Gideon's most recent requests, which includes 3 Praetorian guards, which Hux mentions that Gideon obviously thinks he's going to be assassinated or something if he's asking for those. But Hux also mentions how he's asking for a backup for his squad of TIE interceptors, which Gideon interrupts by saying also bombers, which Pelion asks him what his security concerns are, which Gideon says Mandalorians, and that he is sure that they are getting ready to retake their homeworld, which they all agree that's a problem. So Hux allows him to have that stuff, Gideon asked for, and Gideon gives a little speech about getting rid of the Mandalorians once and for all. But I like this scene. One kind of shows the, that none of them really are on the same page. They're kind of a little all over the place. And that, they need more focus, I guess. I don't know. But also, kind of gave a lot of answers on what's been going on with the Imperial Remnant and whatnot, what Gideon's truly up to and whatnot. So that was all great. Also to see characters like Captain Pelion and Brendel Hux in this scene was cool too. So yeah. But we see back on Navarro where Bo and Din have returned with the Mandalorian fleet alongside, the Mandalorians who were in league with Bo beforehand, which we see Grief Karga as a droid kind of warning him about and whatnot, but Grief realizes it's the Mandalorians, which we then see them land near the Mandalorian camp, where Bo's group meets with Din's covert, which it's a tense scene, but the armor comes out and welcomes them all, and tells the covert to help them set up. But we then see Grief Karga appear and speaks with Din, telling him he has a gift for him, so they head back to the town where he reveals IG-11 being controlled by one of the Anzellans, which Din is like, what did you do to IG-11? Which Grief is like, no, this is IG-12. But Din wonders, if it's safe, which Grief says they stripped it of pretty much everything, and it's now just pretty much a vehicle, which Din doesn't like it, but Grogu, I believe Grief puts Grogu in and starts controlling it, which the IG-12 mobile has a yes and no button, and when Din is says he doesn't like it, and that Grogu is too young to control it, Grogu presses the no button, which is funny. Like, Din kind of looks at him and is like, what? What do you say? But, Din and Grief have a conversation. Din is saying he doesn't want Grogu in it, which Grogu is pressing the no button. And Grief is, saying pretty much just to give it the old spin, which is Grogu is pressing the yes button. I can't speak. So Din goes to grab him out, but Grogu pushes him away and starts easily walking with it and just starts pressing yes over and over again. And so they keep it and walk back to camp in the city. Grogu keeps pressing yes over and over again. In a moment, it didn't look like Grogu was even pressing anything. They just had the noise playing. Obviously, it was from a distance, so you really couldn't see that well. But I'm pretty sure Grogu wasn't even pressing it. They added it in later. But he then goes up to some fruit stand and steals some fruits, which Din has to pay for it and whatnot. But when he gets mad at Grogu, but they get back to camp. But then later that night, we see Bo talk to all the Mandalorians about taking the fleet and heading to Mandalore so they can retake it. But before everyone goes down there, they need to send a small group so they can make a perimeter and make sure it's safe and whatnot. But she says she needs volunteers for the mission from both tribes, which Din volunteers himself and Grogu right away, which leads to Ahsoka Reeves volunteering, then Axbo's volunteering, then Paz Vizsla volunteering, and then many more from both tribes volunteering, and then finally the armor volunteers to go, which we then see them head to Mandalore, taking the fleet and whatnot, and Bo, Din, and the others leave in her Gauntlet starfighter, and they head down to the surface. Some of them jump out beforehand to make sure the landing zone is secure, which it is, so Bo lands, and then they start heading for the Great Forge, which along the way they run into a pirate ship thingy, which has some Mandalorians on board who've been surviving on the planet since the Great Purge, but they still swear their loyalty to Bo-Katan, which later on the ship they're having a dinner feast, I guess, and they talk about what happened to them during and after the Great Purge, and how they, the Mandalorians got punished for not wanting to surrender, which in this moment Bo reveals that's not the truth and that she did surrender to Gideon after the Night of 1,000 Tears by, disarming Mandalore and, because of that, the people of Mandalore, could live, but obviously Gideon betrayed her and led to the Great Purge and whatnot. Well, I think the Night of 1,000 Tears was kind of like the start of the Great Purge or whatever. I don't know. It's only really been talked about. We haven't really seen it or anything. I do wonder if we'll eventually see it. I don't know. But after all that, the Mandalorian survivors ask how the others survived, referring to Din and his covert and whatnot, which the armorer says that they were hidden on the moon of Concordia, which the survivors ask of their Death Watch, which the armorer just says that Death Watch is no more and that they shattered into many warring factions, which, they are Death Watch. I'm pretty sure they're probably one of those, factions would split it off after they were no more. But Bo comes in and says that, their people have suffered over and over again because of their division of their own people. And like the armorer said, warring factions. Which Bo says, Mandalore is too strong for anyone to defeat them. But what always does is their divisions. Alluding to that they kind of need to get over those differences so they can become one Mandalore. But later we see Din come up to Bo telling her that he was always taught that she was selfish and that he, didn't know what she actually did. Which, she says that she was selfish and it brought this destruction. Which Din is like, we'll rebuild. And says that's what Mandalorians have been doing for thousands of years. Rebuilding after being on the brink of extinction. And, they've been on that brink of extinction time and time again, and they've always rebuilt. Which Bo says she doesn't know if she can unite their people, and says the only thing she has is the Darksaber. Which, Din says that his people, don't care about the Darksaber. And that all he really knows about it is what Bo has taught him. But, he says, his people, what means more to him, his people, is honor, loyalty, and character. Which Din says, this is why I serve you. Lady Bo-Katan is what he says. And continues by saying that your song is not yet written, and that will serve her until it is. Which, Bo seems, I don't know, maybe a little shocked over it, but does seem to kind of give Bo hope and whatnot. But I really enjoyed that. Easily my favorite scene of the episode, and maybe the season so far. I really, really loved it, showing how far Din and Bo's relationship has, come. But later we see Bo talking with the armorer about continuing their search tomorrow, which the armorer says the injured on the ship should be ferried back to the fleet so they can recover there, which Bo agrees and tells the captain of the ship that any who are well enough to continue can come with them on their search for the Great Forge, which the captain says he can do better than that and actually take them right to the Forge, which Bo kind of gives him a little, shake of the head, like, good, I guess. Which the next day we see them set sail for the Forge, while the armorer takes the injured back to the fleet in Bo's Gauntlet Starfighter, which there is one scene, it's later in the episode, where she kind of gets back into space and kind of talks to them, whoever's controlling the fleet at that moment, says that she's got injured coming. But along the way to the Forge, we see Axe and Paz kind of getting into it while playing a match of like this chess-like game. And, they do start fighting, which it goes on for a few minutes. But Grogu then comes in the IG-12 mobile and stops them by grabbing them and tapping the no button, which gets them to stop. Which Bo then tells Din that, he taught him well, which Din's like, I didn't teach Grogu that. Which, Din then gives Grogu a little nod of the head, which Grogu returns, which was cute. But later they run into a big monster and have to flee the pirate ship. They are able to get underground, where they then are able to get to the Great Forge, which, they talk about the Forge and whatnot and what it means to the Mandalorians. But then they get ambushed by those stormtrooper-like troopers we saw earlier in the episode, which are kind of like the in Rebels. You saw the like Imperial Mandalorian commandos or something like that, which are similar to that, but more stormtrooper. Definitely their helmets. Their helmets are just stormtrooper helmets. But also in Rebels, they were more actually Mandalorians. Where these, I'm just assuming, are just like stormtroopers. But they attack and are kind of outnumbered. But we see Axe kind of say he'll flee and kind of get back to the fleet to warn them. Which Paz sees a hole in the ceiling and says to go for it and he'll give cover. Which Axe gets out and heads back to the fleet. But after Axe, leaves, they do kind of start, beating up on the Imperials, which leads the Imperials to retreat further into the cave area. So the Mandalorians go after them, and we see Din lead the charge. But all they end up finding is an Imperial base and a trap, as they're kind of like in a little tunnel area, and most of them kind of get locked into this little tunnel because there's like 2 doors. But a few Mandalorians are outside of it, and Din is one of them, which they kill the others and capture Din by shooting like ropes at him and tying him up and whatnot, which is when Moff Gideon reintroduces himself, which he now has a set of Mandalorian armor himself, which is all black. He has a black helmet with the horns and the visor area is red. It's cool looking, but he tells him to disarm Din. But then he thanks Din for getting the Mandos all in one place, and then talks about his armor, which I guess is a new Dark Trooper armor forged by Beskar. And he also talks about how Mandalorians will live on through him because of this armor, because now he's gonna wipe them all out. But like I said, I guess this is like new Dark Trooper armor. I don't know if we'll see more troopers in this armor, what Gideon's wearing, or if he'll be the only ones to wear it. I don't know. But he then goes on about how he's bringing together the best of cloners, Jedi, and Mandalorians to create an army, which is interesting. I'm guessing these Mandalorian Dark Troopers are going to be like cloned and maybe able to use the Force. I'm guessing that's what he's trying to create. I don't know. But he then says while he has the element of surprise, he's going to take out their fleet, and he activates the TIE interceptors and bombers, which he then tells them to take Din away, and then he goes and talks with Bo, asking her to surrender the Darksaber, which she obviously doesn't, and looks back at Paz, who says this is the way, as she runs to the other door and starts to kind of cut it open, with the Darksaber, which Gideon flies off. But before that, he tells the Imperials to open the doors and kill the rest of them. So they do that, but we see Paz and some of the others kind of taking them out and whatnot as Bo gets the door open, which, she does, and they all start to fall back. But Paz stays in front and covers them, which they all get away, and Bo tells them to kind of come on, gonna fall back also. But Paz shuts the door, saying there are too many and that this is the way. So Bo uses his sacrifice and leaves, which you then see Paz taking them all out. Eventually his blaster overheats, so he has to use his hands, punching them and whatnot, tackling them, whatever. Which he does take all of them out, and it seems like he's going to get away. But then the 3 Praetorian guards Gideon ordered show up, and their design is kind of, it's similar-ish to The Last Jedi. Definitely their, chest stuff and their weapons are similar. Their helmets are completely different. They're kind of a mix between like the Royal Guard helmets we see in Return of the Jedi, and maybe like, I guess Mandalorian also, but their Imperial Royal Guard helmets are already similar to Mandalorians. So, it's like that. But Paz doesn't stand a chance against these Praetorian guards, as he doesn't even get a good blow in them, and they take him out easily, and he falls to the ground as they walk away, and the episode ends with him just laying there, seemingly dead, which was a crazy way to end the episode. But I really enjoyed the episode, and I really enjoyed his last stand there. I really wasn't upset to see him go. This season is really the first time I've really got more of him than just a dude who's a rival to Din. But it wasn't like enough for me to get super connected to him. But I do really, really love how he goes out, and it's probably, made me like the character way more than I did before, I thought it was a great, sacrifice moment there, to save some of the last, or seemingly last, Mandalorians there are. But like I said, this episode pretty much had everything I love about an episode of The Mandalorian. I just think the episode kind of came, or this type of episode kind of came too late into the season, but it was still great. I really loved it. I wouldn't say it was my all-time favorite of the series, but it was definitely easily my favorite of the season, and I'm excited to see where the season ends in the next episode. But anyways, my grade, I'm gonna give it an A-. So yeah, but that's gonna be it for this one. Next I'll be reviewing the final episode of season 3, chapter 24, so you can check that out then. But in the meantime, I just got my reviews on the first 6 episodes and everything else I do by Vince Arzuno. I'll catch you guys in the next one.
You also have to know how to navigate the galaxy. That way, you'll never be lost.